Christy from West Virginia just got to town.
Oh, nice. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mount Shasta called her. I bet you've never heard that before.
I've never heard that before. In fact, I've never said that about myself.
Where are you from?
There's nothing special about that mountain.
I moved here from LA. I was living in LA at the time.
We're kind of LA refugees.
Okay,
too.
we're live.
We are live. Live from Mount Shasta. It's the Toltec discussions. You'd only get that if you grew up with Saturday Night Live a little bit.
I definitely grew up.
You might hear an occasional bad joke using SNL memes if you hang out long enough.
Okay.
It could happen. It really could.
And if you really want to be in the in-group, you have to know Monty Python. So.
It's not on the required reading list,
Right.
but it should be on the required viewing list.
I love Monty Python.
Monty Python. Yeah. At least all the movies. You don't have to have watched every single episode of Monty Python's
Flying Circus.
Flying Circus, but it helps.
The Lumberjack song and
Oh, that's
the
hilarious.
Bureau walks.
Yeah, the Lumberjacks. I love it when they start looking at it like, run away.
Like, that's not
I used to sing that to my boys when they were little, and there were so many things that when they were older and they really realized what I was saying or where it came from, they were like horrified.
You were making fun of us. Yep, sure was, kid. So, welcome everybody. We have a newcomer, or two, or three, tonight here in the studio audience. Anybody online yet?
Let's see. Cherie's here. Maria is here.
Hi Marie. Hi Cherie. Oh, those two rhyme.
Maria and
Marie and Cherie. Okay. I have a teeny tiny bit of news for those of you who are formal students, and you know who you are. One of the 4 required books is The Teachings of a Toltec Survivor by Coyote the Blind, who is my teacher and benefactor. And it's available now. It's out of print. You can't order a hard copy new from Amazon, but you can order it via Kindle. Now, in theory, Kindle runs on almost every device. You don't have to have the little official Kindle reader. In actuality, I've been told by more than one student that Kindles don't run on their device, whether it's I don't even know what kind of iPads, notebooks.
Well, I think
Whatever
several
they
of
are.
our students don't have a desktop, or a laptop, so they're definitely just using a phone.
Towards that end, I have been for the last month plus badgering Coyote mercifully to find an electronic copy of that book to save me from scanning the whole thing page by page, so that I could then get it converted into a PDF that you will then be buying from Coyote. And this last week, he succeeded. He got me an electronic version. I think it's actually the Kindle version, which I can open on our computer. And I started converting it first into Word. It's a 2-step process. First into Word, and I have to add in some of the figures, and then it'll go into a PDF. I got into chapter 2, and I found missing chunks. So when they first converted it over into Kindle, some things got missed. So I don't know how many more of that, but that slowed things down. But within, I'm hoping, a couple of weeks to have that job done. It'll go back to Coyote for proofing, and then I don't know how much it's going to cost. Hopefully not too much. You can actually find occasionally a used copy of the paperback on Amazon Used Books or some of the other used book sites for only $250 was the last one I saw.
Right, yeah.
And
It's on there now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that going and just laughing, right? You got to be nuts. I mean, I wouldn't pay $1 more than $225 for that. So, at that rate, the PDF version for only $150 would be a great bargain. At least they kind of groan.
You get more mileage, ladies, if you laugh at his jokes.
So, just to set the stage, you two probably don't know this. I used to teach college physics. And the first day of class, to kind of break the ice, I would, let people know, yeah, physics is hard. It requires math and thinking. So, here's how, and you're always under stress to not knowing whether or not you're going to pass. So I give them instructions the first day class on how to flunk physics, and it's all the things you shouldn't do, right, if you want to pass, but you should do if you want to flunk, like don't come to class, don't read the book, and all those basic common sense things that college kids never seem to master until their senior year when they realize they might have to pay for another year of college if they don't pass. So one of the things on my list of how to flunk physics was don't laugh at the instructor's bad jokes. So it's not and I tell them, it's not a question of whether they're good jokes or bad jokes. I guarantee you right now that every joke I tell in class all semester will be bad. You still have to laugh. And then that would kind of break the ice.
Of course.
And then
Captive audience.
yeah, and then within the first 2 weeks, by the time the drop deadline came, a third of the class would drop out. Every single semester I taught college physics. A third of the class who'd registered would drop out. And the first semester I was teaching, I went to the department head, I'm like, Kyle, what the heck am I doing wrong? I lost a third of my class. He said, well, how many you got now? Or he said, no, how many were registered? And I said, about 24. So you're down to 16? He said, oh, that's pretty good. I started with 22 and I'm down to 12. And apparently they just know that. People think they're going to take physics and then find out it requires thinking and math, and then they drop it. So for those of you waiting for the Toltec Survivor book,
Indeed.
wait about a few more weeks.
Okay.
Don't spend $250 unless you're really uber rich and you want it right now. Otherwise, wait.
I'm going to wait.
And within a month, you should have, from Coyote will be able to sell you a PDF version. And I don't know what price he sets, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably going to be under $250.
I would think so, but who knows?
I don't even remember.
Anyway,
what
that's kind of a nice
so far.
segue because we're talking about the Toltecs. And what Toltecs are, one of the things they're most famous for is their ability to upgrade human consciousness. Not just for an individual, but for a population. And we do that by, well, a lot of things. By training to use our natural body to its utmost. So if you take the average couch potato who flunked gym class or were flunking gym class until they begged the doctor to give them notes so they didn't have to take gym class. And the last exercise they did was pushing away from the bar and 6-ounce curls, as we used to say. And that's their exercise. They have the same set of muscles as does a trained Olympic athlete. But those muscles are in very different condition than somebody who's an Olympic sprinter or hurdler or an Olympic skier or a World Cup soccer player. We just had the World Cup this year. Was that this year or was that last year? Anyway, the French won, which is always sad to see the French do anything right. The French. We'll talk about the French another time. But they won. They won the World Cup this year. So congratulations to the French. That'll give you your fix for the next 25 years. Those World Cup soccer players, Major League Baseball players, hockey players, all the big athletes with super fast, super strong, super flexible, they've trained and they've milked the utmost out of their physical bodies and the connections with their mind, right? So somebody did an analysis for Major League Baseball players, both for the hitters and for the fielders, that is suggestive that hitting a baseball, and if you're an outfielder, catching a fly ball, are actually impossible to do unless you're seeing ahead in time.
Oh.
That the ball is coming so fast, a good Major League fastball is 95 miles an hour, and it's only 60 feet away. And the average Major League fastball is 90 miles an hour. And the reflexes of a person are such that if you wait until you see if the ball is going to be a strike or a ball, and then start to swing, it's impossible for the bat to catch up and hit the ball. It is physically impossible. And then once the ball is hit, let's say a fly ball deep into the outfield, depending on the spin and the rotation of the wind, it's not just, like I taught in physics class, a nice straight parabolic motion down the field. It's screwing around three-dimensionally, and it goes this way, and then the wind catches it, comes back, and it's actually more like a corkscrew when the fly ball goes out. And so for, if there's an outfielder here and an outfielder there, and you hit this corkscrew thing somewhere in the middle, there isn't enough time for the outfielders to see where it is and run over and catch it and do the math in their head on where it's going to be, unless they are somehow seeing ahead in time.
Wow.
So I saw this, a great analogy. This was several years ago, I watched that. And it's like, wow, that really gets you thinking, right? So it's like either they're guessing. Every time a player gets a hit, he's guessing. And every time an outfielder catches a fly ball, they're guessing. Or they are somehow manipulating time in what they do. So that's an example. You've got this ultra strong, fast, flexible, super concentrated, homed in on the concentration is important. The biggest difference between the people who are playing at the elite levels of pro sports, Olympic sports, and the ones who were average college players or just high school players is very often not physical. Yeah, sometimes, if you're going to be a basketball player and you're 7'2", you're going to be a center, and the guy who's 5'6" is never going to be a center in the NBA. So that part of it's physical. But then you look at the guy down in San Francisco, where the Golden State Warriors basketball team is, who's won the championship 3 of the last 4 years. He's won the MVP a couple times. His name's Steph Curry. He's about 5'8", skinny. You meet him on the street and you'd say, this guy isn't even tall enough to wash my windshield at the gas station. And he's the MVP, most valuable player of the entire pro basketball.
Wow.
Because of what's up here. He has trained his reflexes. He has trained his concentration to be so focused in that somebody did a montage. I saw it on the internet a couple years ago, where there was one game where, and he's a guard, so he's way out there shooting from a long distance, right? Something like, just in a game, not just practice, but in a game situation, something like 15 straight shots without a miss. Just boom, boom, boom. And it's like, he'd steal the ball, boom, steal the ball, boom. Just every fiber has been trained to the maximum performance. So now then, imagine taking that level of concentration to get the most we can out of this and putting that level of effort into every single thing we do. That's like step one of Toltec consciousness. Right? For those of you who've been hearing me for a while, you know we talk about having an intent. Why are we doing it? What are we doing and why? And then you put every fiber of your attention into that task. There's a famous story of a world-class bridge player. I guess bridge, the card game, which I've never played. It's similar to hearts, though, I think, where you play hands and you try to get all of this suit and none of that suit, and then they score it. Weird. I've never played bridge, but I used to play a lot of hearts in college. I was decent at it, not great. And this guy's concentration was so good because you know what cards are in the deck, you know what you've got, you see some of the cards of your opponents, and unlike hearts, I know bridge, you have a partner. So you're sitting across the table from your partner, and then the other two partners are sitting like this, and it's usually only 4 people at a time can play bridge, whereas hearts, it could be any number of people. And you have, without talking or hand signals, you have to play the card so you and your partner get more points than the opponent, however that works. And this guy was so good in concentrating so hard, on knowing the deck and knowing the situation, the what ifs. It's kind of like being a master chess player, grandmaster chess player, 20 moves ahead, something like that. They tested him, and they had a completely nude woman walk through the room, walk around the table a couple times, and then walk out. And then after the hand, they said, anything unusual happened during this hand? I said, no, unless you mean that playing on clubs. He's so honed in with his concentration. It's like, I don't care about what's going on in the room. And that's good up to a point. Now, if you're out in the woods playing bridge, and a mountain lion walks into the clearing, you might want to be aware of that.
Right.
So the Toltec approach would be, make sure you know your environment. If you're playing bridge out front here on our front porch, you might want to be aware of the fact that we occasionally have mountain lions and bears walk down our driveway or try to get in our trash cans. Not lately, not since spring, and we're now into fall, so that's good. We've gone 6 months without a bear approaching the house. So that is level 1, is getting the most out of what we're born with in terms of our physical senses, our physical brain, our physical body. So what am I going to say next? We just talked about planning ahead in time. What am I going to say next?
No idea where you're going.
I'll bet you do.
I think he's planning ahead in time.
That's my job.
Exactly.
Every day I go back and forth in time. Always.
Let me ask you, because
Yeah.
something came up for me when you were talking about these players seeing ahead in time to
Mhm.
make these. Would that also include slowing down or stopping time?
Maybe.
Because I've experienced that before, and it's
Yeah, I have too.
really an amazing experience.
Yeah, it is. I think one of the things that happens in that case is repetition. When we repeat a task well enough, we develop what's called muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get good at a musical instrument, you get good at art, whether it's paintbrushes or pencils or whatever, it happens automatically because you've trained the fingers, whether it's playing the bagpipes, playing the keyboards, whatever. Memory, we know, is distributed through the organism. It's not in here. Short-term memory is in the brain. Long-term memory is in a holographic field generated by a nervous system and is distributed throughout all our organs. Where I'm going with after phase 1, did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it could include slowing down, speeding up, stopping time, and I've had a number of personal experiences like that. Question.
What came to my mind at that same moment is the idea of in modern physics, when we talk about that by observing something that you can actually change the results,
Mm-hmm.
and by being focused enough on the play that was happening in the moment and where the ball was going, and there is a certain amount of calculation that's going on to make that tangent point, that trajectory,
Yeah.
It's like you don't know exactly where it's going, but from what the known information, you start plotting this trajectory. But by
Did you
placing your entire attention then on that moment, that you could theoretically, change the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I was reading something recently about in the dreaming how placing your attention on something will actually reveal it. If something seems hidden or around a corner, and I've done that before in the dreaming where I've just been seeing down a hallway, but I can actually see down the hallway and around the corner.
Yeah. And we can actually do similar things in this waking dream as well, because we extend our senses. This is kind of where we're going next. But I've seen replays on baseball games over the years where the pitcher starts his wind-up, and there's choreography, right? In a team like this, and I use the baseball team as an analogy for the Toltec party a lot. And we all have a role to play. Okay, so if you're playing third base, your rules are very different than if you're playing center field. And if somebody gets hurt and you have to move positions, then now you need to know the rules for your new position. So, based on the propensity of the hitter, the manager will put his people in the field in a certain position and tell the pitcher, throw here, because statistically it's more likely that the batter can only hit the ball where he's just put most of his players. I've seen instances where that was all set up and statistically that should have happened, but then as the pitcher starts his windup, way before the batter hit the ball, one of the players in the outfield suddenly starts running the other way, and the guy manages to hit it over here where there wouldn't be anybody, but he catches it because he broke the rules before the guy even threw the ball. So I've seen instances of that where he's picking up on something. Time is not what we think it is. So phase 1, that it's getting the most out of what we start with. The Toltec higher philosophies of conscience is that what we're born with is not what we're limited to. And what we do is we have a lot of techniques. What we're doing is trying to train the mind to make better connections with all our other bodies, not just the physical body. We have a series of energy bodies. We have an etheric body, an astral body, a mental body, and causal, and so on. And each one of them is slightly more diffused. It's like one octave separate in frequency, one octave higher than the physical body frequencies. And by frequencies, I'm talking about quantum mechanical vibrations. So you will hear, at least from me, a lot about quantum physics. And if you know absolutely nothing about quantum physics, that's good, because then I don't have to be right.
But of course you're right.
And then I could be like
Exactly.
my medical school cardiology professor, who, when he asked me a question one day, said, "Oh, figure on page 28. What's the pressures in different chambers of the heart?" And so it really depends on at which phase of the cardiac cycle you're talking about. So I said, "Well, which phase of the cardiac cycle are you talking about?" He said, oh, this phase. And I said, oh, well, then the answer is this. And I don't remember. It was one of the heart chambers. He said, no, that's wrong. And I go, are you sure? Because I seem to recall reading that. He said, no, look at the figure on page 28, and that'll show you. And I looked it up and go, oh, you mean the figure that says I'm right? He came over and snatched the book out of my hand. Slams it shut, throws it down, walks, no, the book is wrong.
Oh,
And the whole class, there's about 30 of us in the class, we all just look at each other, it's like eye roll, you know. It's like, the guy was a little bit of a prima donna at times. I mean, it's a nice enough guy out of class, but you got him in front of a class, he became a prima donna.
Yeah,
And,
and you can't show them up.
Right. And it's like, okay, whatever. And,
so did you pass the class?
oh, I passed. I graduated, right? I had to pass the class to graduate. And that was a while ago. No, if I don't know the answer, I'll go look it up. But there's a couple books that I recommend in terms of learning about modern physics principles for people who weren't physics majors in college. The Dancing Wu Li Masters would be one.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I have not read it, but I have it. Yeah.
I've read it, and I read it before I met him, so that was the only clue
It's
that
the only
I
reason
had.
she got a second date.
I love Barry's the girl.
Yeah, but I think it's written for right-brained people. So you have, if I can get it, you can get it.
There's another one I like, and it's written more for left-brained people, called The Tao of Physics by Fritjof Capra. That's also very good, but it is more left-brained. And so one of those two I recommend if you want to start learning a little bit and learning the language. We have these energy bodies. That's part of what we are. We have these higher planes where we exist. And where we work, and that's some of where we go in the dreaming. So in the Toltec work, you'll hear a lot about the dreaming, you'll hear a lot about consciousness, you'll hear a lot about art.
Can you go there in a daydreaming state?
Yes.
Okay, like a meditative state?
Yeah, you can go there. Once, at first, it'll start happening accidentally. And you will actually can experience instances where you literally change dimensions you're in accidentally. And if you do it wrong, you may not come back.
Uh-oh.
Or you might end up someplace better. You never know.
But well, you know you're in another dimension.
Yeah.
I bet you will, yeah.
Yeah. First time it happened to me spontaneously, you definitely knew. I mean, it was the same appearing city until I realized some of the buildings were different. You know, like this building right in front of me, it was like different color, different shape, and the quality of the space is different. So yeah, that can happen. And then later on, you learn to do that deliberately and to control it. And yeah, that's a process. And you get better and better and better over time. The level of rigor to learn this is higher than the average couch potato is used to. There's different approaches to spiritual work. At one end of the spectrum, we have what I call the dogmatic religions. I don't want to name any names, but some of them are much more dogmatic and negative than others. Catholics! Excuse me, frog in my throat. I'm glad I got this.
Should I say bless you, my son?
Yeah, there you go. No, you went it the other way. That was Orthodox. No, that's Greek and Russian Orthodox. Roman Catholics go the
Wars
other
have
way.
been fought over that.
Wars have been fought,
I'm
and
so sure.
tens of thousands of people murdered over which direction you make the sign of the cross and what that means to somebody.
Oh my goodness.
And if the Romans had used a different method of execution on Christ, let's say they did hanging, we wouldn't go around making the sign of the cross.
Indeed.
We'd be go around making the sign of the noose. Right? And then would we make the sign of the noose with the right hand or the left hand? And wars would be fought over that. And then maybe people should just realize it's not about the method of execution. That's not the main deal. He came with a message. Maybe we should listen to the message. And did you get the message?
Right.
And stop worrying about the method of execution.
Indeed.
So there's a level of rigor that's required where we don't guess. If you're following, for example, I'm going to talk about a couple of things in this academic rigor. We'll put it under that heading. And I'm going to divide that up into two broad halves. There's the scientific half, and then there's the fuzzy subjects, the non-scientific subjects. And in the fuzzy subjects, the one I like to talk about the most is philosophy. Because philosophers at least have some system of logic to the way they approach material, and they ponder questions like the human condition and where we came from and where we're going and things like that. Speaking of Monty Python, has any of you ever seen, there's a famous clip, it's one of the best clips Monty Python ever did from the Flying Circus show, about the philosophers playing soccer.
I don't think I saw that.
Have you seen it?
I was like 10 when I watched Flying Circus.
Okay. So your homework on all of you is to get on YouTube and find it.
Okay.
So basically they show a big soccer stadium and then the team's coming out of the locker room and Germany is playing Greece. And all the players' names are philosophers. So like Aristotle and Plato and Euripides, and on the other side you got Hegel and Kant and I can't remember any of the other Germans because they're German, they're philosophers. And anyway, the German philosophers coming out are all dressed in like medieval or Renaissance era clothing, like the suit with tails and the top hats and the things like this, and the socks that come up to here and the fancy shoes that they wore back then. And then, of course, the Greeks are all dressed in togas. And they come out on the field, and the referee, who did they get? It was like Confucius was the Chinese guy dressed in the referee's shirt. And so, okay, we're getting ready, and they're all stretching and lining up, and the referee places the ball down, and he's got his stopwatch out, blows the whistle, ready to go, and everybody starts talking to each other. The Greeks are going over and they're gesticulating. You get 2 or 3 Greeks and then 2 or 3 Germans talking to each other, and then you get some Greeks arguing with Germans, and it goes on like this for like the whole game. And they cut to, and look at that. And I don't even know enough philosophical terms, proper ones, to say what they were talking about. It's been a while since I've seen this. And all of a sudden, one of the players has, like it's getting down to the final minute of the game. It's 0-0 because the ball hasn't moved. And all of a sudden one of the players goes, "Oh, Eureka, he's got an idea." And so he kicks the ball to somebody else and he kicks, and they go down, just kick, boom. So they actually had some real soccer players dressed up here. And then the guy heads it into the goal and he scores. And then, of course, that was the Greeks, right? Because it was the Eureka moment. And then the Germans were like, trying to say, "Oh no, it's not a real, this is all an illusion that shouldn't count," and all this, and then blow the whistle, game's over, right? It was hilarious. So you guys should owe it to yourselves to go watch that. Philosophy at least has their rules and a way of approaching critical thought. In science, there's a scientific method that's supposed to be used where you observe the universe and you see things. Gosh, every time he drops that brick, it falls down. Why would that be? So you come up with a hypothesis. And then you devise an experiment. That was the big thing that Galileo introduced into the scientific process, was a controlled experiment, wherein you're only supposed to change one variable at a time. And then when I change this one variable, here's what happens. When I change this other variable, here's what happens. And then you develop a sound basis. And then once you've gathered your data, you've run your experiments, and that's the big thing. That was the big advancement from taking science from a philosophy, the way the Greeks approached science, like Aristotle. They had this notion that pure thought was the best way to find things out. And so they would observe and then they would think about it and come up with an answer. And some of the answers they got were completely correct, and some of them they got were as wrong could be, because they didn't get their hands dirty with the real world. That was considered beneath them. And then here's Galileo, the Italian, coming along, and he says, I wonder. So he started running experiments. And that was the big revolution. And then making measurements. So the difference in the rigor of thought between a scientist and a philosopher is, in science we're dealing with things that we can measure. Length and width and depth and speed and time and position and density and all those kind of things that scientists like to play with. That's what we do. Philosophers have the same level of rigor where they're trying to identify things and consider all possibilities. You just can't measure it very well. If you did, it becomes science. So that's the division. Can you measure it or not? It seems to be the big factor. And there's that rigor of thought that we, in the Toltec path, we're applying to our spiritual work, first on self and then in groups. The academic world, and especially science, in recent years, recent decades, has been corrupted. There are scientists out there doing really sloppy science. Some of it's through lack of training and lack of knowledge, and they think they know what they're doing and they really don't. The academic pressure, when people are paying huge amounts of money to send kids to college, they kind of demand that the universities give their kids good grades. Well, I'm spending $100,000 a year to send my kid to your college, and I'm donating another $100,000 a year just because I like you. You darn well better give my kid a good grade so he can get into grad school. He or she. And I've seen that in action. So you get people out there who are engineers, and I wish I were making these things up, working for NASA, and they don't understand Ohm's law, which is a high school level physics equation with 3 elements in it: voltage, resistance, and current. V equals IR. And I literally saw satellite launches delayed because engineers of that caliber didn't understand something. And they had to be taken aside and explained by somebody. You don't get to stop. Yeah, I guess it wasn't a launch. It was just a major satellite test. And it's like, unbelievable, right? So that's one level that goes on. The other level that goes on is you have, I don't know, let's say a big company, perhaps a tobacco company, wanting to try and convince the world that cigarette smoking is safe and good for you. So they publish studies in journals, supposedly neutral scientific journals, that says, why look, we looked at all these people, half of them were smokers, half of them were not. We normalized out all the other variables like race and age, and there's absolutely no difference in health outcomes between smokers and non-smokers. Well, funny thing happened on the way to the forum is one of the tobacco company scientists who had a set, he had a set of cojones, and he realized what was going on, and he talked. Turns out every one of those studies was forged, completely made up. There were no subjects. The data was created to look good. It was published. I think the train of command came out that some of the journals who were publishing these things were also being paid off to publish them. Because you look at this, you go, right? If you're a scientist, you should be able to look, and it's your field of expertise, you should be able to look at a journal or article and tell how accurate it is. At least if you're experienced enough to be an editor at a scientific journal. Now, you're not supposed to be right out of college where you have no experience. So this guy came forward and he told a story on 60 Minutes, and that started the whole house of cards coming down, and the whole thing came out, and tobacco companies got sued, and we still had people lining up to buy cigarettes. Right? Everybody knows, it's common knowledge that they've been putting chemicals in the cigarettes for years to make the nicotine more strongly absorbed and to make them more addictive than just tobacco alone. And then and it's not the tobacco that causes the cancer, it's all these other chemicals. So that's another form of junk science. And that's not the only industry that's doing that. The pharmaceutical industry, tobacco industry, engineering industries, the environmental pollution industries. Whatever industry that's polluting the environment, I should say. Right. But I guess that is accurate. You could say they're the environmental polluting industries, which is most industries. And there's junk science being done. So we've lost a set of rigor. Yeah.
And there's also academics and scientists who are afraid to lose their job or their funding, who've already published their theories and won't back down because they're wrong. And so, you don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about tonight, is there's a level of rigor that's required to be able to do that. So pick up a journal article and flip through it and say, and this could be a philosophy journal, that's not just science I'm talking about here. Any academic field, it could be archaeology, it could be biology, it could be any of the ologies, or the osophies. That's the Greek version of study of. That means you have to have spent enough time studying whatever it is you're studying, like the spiritual things, like the attention drills that we do, all the things that we've taught so far in the school about raising your standards, raising your rigor, and that academic work should never stop. Okay, if you live to be 125 and you feel the life force slipping away and you realize I only got a couple days left, that's the time to start reading your next big novel. That's the time to start reading War and Peace, which I actually read in college. It took me a whole summer in my spare time, because I was working and all this stuff. I wasn't just reading War and Peace every day. That's the time to start writing your next book. You're 125 years old, you figure, I got 2 days left. I'm starting something right now. Keep learning. The learning is one of the few things we get to take with us when we transition to the higher planes. So never ever stop. And when you think you've got something nailed, go back and start over. If you think you're a terrible artist, force yourself to draw. If you think you're a terrible musician, learn an instrument. You don't have to be good enough to play Carnegie Hall, but learn something. Pick an instrument and learn it. and read. One of my blogs from earlier this year I called The Great Toltec Historical Conspiracy, because there's evidence of cover-ups among academia about Toltec history. Actually, about a lot of North American history, but the Toltecs in particular seem to have been singled out for elimination more than most other groups. When the Spaniards first came and they first started talking, and they ran into the Mayans and they ran into the Aztecs, both of whom were still there, they heard about the Toltecs, and they learned about cities and places and events and people, and Toltec history was this long, rich period of time, from well before the BC era up until well after, until at least 1000 AD, maybe later. And now what academia tells us is there's only about a 100 to 200 year period right at the end that they acknowledge, well, yeah, that was the Toltecs. And everything else that used to be Toltec has now been given to the Mayans, although that was the early Mayans. Or it's been given to the Aztecs, or they make up new names for cultures. Oh, we don't know, that was the Teotihuacan culture, some unknown name did all this stuff. Or the Tula culture, or the Monte Alban culture, or whatever it was. They make new names. And so Toltecs are now down to this. And it started somewhere around the 50s or 60s of the last century. And one of the better authors is this one I've got here, Nigel Davies. He wrote a couple of books about the Toltecs. And he was starting to move in that direction, but he was still referring to some of the earlier authors. And he was doing a good academic job of exploring possibilities. Well, here's the 6 major authors on this city, and one says this, and he systematically goes through with a few paragraphs or a few pages about what each one says, and then he'll say, well, it kind of seems like this is the most likely. It doesn't come out. You never say that in academia, because you don't want to, academia is so political, you don't want to annoy somebody who might have an opposing view, who next year might be the one to approve your grant money, right? So another thing you'll find when you learn to read between the lines of academic works is that, well, there's many possibilities for this. One is this. This is one possibility that it would explain this. And then you go on to the next subject. Right? So you didn't say this one answer is one answer. You said, yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, but there's this one too, and then you go on. You're saying that that's the one.
Right.
But you're not knowing all, well, here's this other list of 14 other possibilities, but I'm only going to talk about this one. Obviously, he's endorsing that, or she. I'm saying he because that's in his book that way too. This one is called The Toltecs Until the Fall of Tula. And in his follow-on books, it's called The Toltec Heritage. And there's very little agreement among academic authors about who the Toltecs were. And absolutely none of them have asked the Toltecs, because we disappeared 1000 AD. So why would they bother asking dead people? I don't know, I talk to them every day, so it's actually kind of fun. And they laugh a lot. The ancestors laugh. It's like, they roll their eyes. They still haven't got that right. You know, it's like that picture, I don't know the artist, it's that famous statue from Europe someplace of the angel doing this. Yeah, it's like, yeah. That's kind of what the ancestors are like about a lot of what goes on in this world. It's like, did they get it right yet? No, sorry, they didn't get it right yet. He said, you gotta tell them this. I'm telling them.
Maybe next generation now.
Well, I'm hoping it doesn't take that long. We may not have that long. The world is changing quickly.
It is.
Yeah. So we need to kick it up a notch or 3. So that's what I'm talking about for all you who are students, is kicking your rigor up a notch or 3. Some of you are making good progress on these books that I've assigned, and I appreciate that effort. And I encourage you to bring that to fruition once you've got all 4 of those books read, and I understand the problem with the Toltec Survivor book. I didn't anticipate it being so hard to make the electronic version work, nor did I anticipate the used market being so expensive. I mean, when we bought, back in the day, we were buying these books for, I think, $30. That was the new price. I just looked at it, $29.95 was the price on the book. And now they're selling for $250.
Well, they're hijacking them. No, they realize it's out of print, and so they buy up the last copies, and then they hold them hostage.
Absolutely.
Well, we have ways around that. It's called PDF.
There you go.
Okay. One bonus point, if anybody knows the definition of PDF.
Seems like it's one of those things I used to know.
Probably.
Yeah.
Bonnie should know it. She'd certainly say it.
Document
Prepared
format.
something, isn't it?
Printer document format.
I knew the last 2 letters.
Yeah, it's a universal format, so any computer can print any document on any printer. That's what a PDF was created for, and it works great. So that's how we're going to get around the $250 price when Coyote comes out with a PDF version for, like, let's say $10, which is probably, if it were me, that's what I'd sell it for. He might want 20, or he might sell it for 5. I don't know. It's up to him. I'm just helping him get it ready.
We're just looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm going as fast as I can.
Okay.
I may even work on it a little bit more tonight when I'm done, but probably not until tomorrow. So this academic effort,
Time's a wasted, you know.
well, I'm working here.
Teasing.
I'm working. It may look like I'm having fun teasing everybody, but I'm really working by getting everybody annoyed at me. That's part of my job.
And making us laugh.
Yeah, I told you if you didn't, you'd be in trouble.
And listen, we learn. Oops.
So, the upgraded consciousness work. The first one that I like to talk about now is dreaming. Contrary to the belief of many professional psychologists, the dreams we experienced are not simply the fears and stresses of the day played out by a worn out subconscious mind. A small percentage of our dreams might fit that criteria. But most of them are your consciousness doing things in other planes of reality than this physical plane. The dreaming isn't an activity. It's a place. It's a place we go, a place where we do things, a place where we can learn. And working with the dreaming needs to become an academic exercise. So whether you're a scientist or whether you're a philosopher trying to play soccer, you guys gotta watch that, that's hilarious. Whichever model of rigor resonates with you, whether it's the scientific model or whether it's the fuzzy subject model. Fuzzy because it has no defined edges and therefore it can't be measured. It's a very derogatory term scientists use to describe everything that doesn't go on in the science building on a college campus. There's a lot of ways to analyze dreams. Dream analysis, however, is not the most important thing to do with your dreams. The goal is to learn to engage with the dream proactively and to be able to navigate in the dreaming as well or better than you can navigate this version of reality. The first step, though, is what?
Create a dream body.
No, that's like step 2.
Learning how to go lucid.
No, that's like step 1.5.
Keep it in a dream journal.
Realize that you're in the dreaming all the time.
Well, that's like step 2.5. Where I'm going is the first
Keep
thing
a
you
journal?
need to do. Yes!
She's like, I know, I get it.
Ding, ding, ding. The first thing you need to do is you need to have a journal. And you need to keep it near you in bed, or you need to be willing and train yourself to be able to get up and walk out here to the living room where you've got the journal so you don't wake your wife up. And write the dreams down. The instant you wake up and it's 1:30 in the morning or 2:30 in the morning or whatever time it is in the middle of the night, and write the dream down. If you don't have a partner who's sharing your bedchamber, that's a little easier because you can just turn the light on and write it down. And you have to get diligent and rigorous about doing it every single time. And when you do,
Oh, I'm sorry. But if
Go-
you never remember your dreams, because I do not remember my dreams.
I'll bet you do. I bet you money.
Okay.
There are techniques that we can work with on that. The first one, which you can try tonight, is you're not trained in energy use, right? But just know that our bodies has natural energy. You take a small glass of water and imagine pulling energy in from the universe and sending it into here. And it's not just energy, it's information.
Okay.
And the information you're putting into the water is that you will remember your dreams.
Okay.
And you drink it, all of it. So you only need a small glass. And then you go to bed. And you're setting an intent in your mind. It's like throwing a switch to remember your dreams.
I mean, I have the journal. I've got the pen right there. It's right. And I wake up in the morning and I go, well, yep.
When
Yeah, nothing to put in there.
when that happens, you get up in the morning, and you write the date, and you write down dreams from last night. I don't remember anything, period. And then start writing the first thing that comes to your mind. It could be a brand new daydream that having nothing to do with what you dreamed last night. And eventually, what you're going to realize is that whatever you're writing down after you write, I don't remember any dreams from last night, that was your dreams from last night. You may not remember it, but it's coming through.
Okay.
That happens a lot. So start that. Start
Okay.
with that.
All right.
And so the first step is write them down. The second step is you have to periodically go back and read the dream journal. You know, in addition to writing down your dreams, we encourage students in the Toltec work to write a lot of other things in their spiritual journal. Even the little mundane things that happen throughout the day can be very important over a long period of time when you're trying to analyze the synchronicities in your life. Oh, that's the 18th blue car with a black cat in the back window I've seen driving randomly on the freeway today. Oh, there's another one. That's the 19th. If you don't write that kind of mundane detail down, 6 months from now you won't remember it. 6 days from now, you probably won't remember it. So that kind of work becomes important, is writing it down. But back to the dreams, first you write them down. Then you want to go lucid. And when you, in order to do going lucid, you have to be aware that you're in a dream.
I've done that one time.
Yeah.
I had one lucid dream.
That's a start. That's good.
It was a long time ago, but I still remember it.
But-
well.
You just said you don't remember dreams. And then you tell me you just remember a dream.
Occasionally.
Busted.
Occasionally.
Busted.
Routinely, I don't remember my dreams.
So, yeah, when you start writing them down and then you're aware that you're in a dream, the first thing that'll happen for most people is, oh, I'm in a dream, I'm aware, and boom, you wake up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
pretty
fine.
much what happened.
Then immediately take another drink of water and then go back.
Okay.
And after it's like, I'll first remember my dreams, then it's go lucid and wake up in the dream. And then there's a lot of little things you can do. You can put yourself in a slightly odd situation when you go to bed. For example, wear a sock on only one foot, as an example. Or wear a pair of pajamas where one leg is long and one leg is cut off. Just go to the thrift shop or the dime store and get a pair of pajamas and cut one leg, or sweatpants and cut one leg off. Okay, it sounds odd, but if you keep doing the same things the same way and getting the same results, yet your intent is to get different results, then what you want to do is you want to change what you do. Not a lot, just a little tweak. And so wake up. And then from there's a lot of other options. And yeah, eventually you will realize that there is no difference between that dreaming and this dreaming. Did you see the movie Avatar?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One moment he's in his broken body where the legs don't work, and next minute his consciousness is transferred into these half-human, half-alien hybrid creatures who can survive in that planet, right, where the atmosphere is toxic to humans. And because we're there to rape the resources, so we got to get rid of the indigenous people and get them out of the way for all the goods.
Sounds familiar, huh?
You know, they had a good model to work from.
Indeed.
So, and then either he's not really in control, and somebody back the other end throws a switch and pulls him back, and oh man, I was just about to make it with the girl, and so there's some actual comparisons between that movie and this. It's one of those movies that's on the spiritual work movie list that teaches valuable principles for the work. And so, to compare the movie Avatar to our situation here, it becomes a good question. Which of us is the avatar and which is the player? Are we the players here, and when we go into the dreaming, that's the avatar? Or is it the other way around? That's real, and this is the game. I have an opinion on that, which I'm not going to share right now. That'll come later. And there's different realities you can go to in the dreaming. So learning to navigate the dreaming is really the first way most people start learning to navigate other planes of reality. Later on in shamanic training, you learn other ways of doing that without having to put your body to sleep. And now that said, that going lucid and learning to navigate that space is a higher level goal than just analyzing your dreams. There is some good things to be learned from learning to analyze your dreams. There's a lot of different ways of doing that, and we'll talk about that, I think, at one of our next workshops, weekend workshops.
I have a question about
Yeah.
lucid dreaming. I've only done it twice, and in both times, in the dream, I went into a scary place, and then I could see myself in exactly the situation I was in life, but I couldn't wake myself up, and it was like I was sensing danger. Someone was trying to break in or something. But those are the only times that I was like simultaneously in the dream and outside the dream, and felt like I couldn't. I mean, eventually I did get out.
Mm.
Is that some kind of special lucid dreaming? Is there
It's a type. The first
that
is
induce the fear?
first when we go through the dreaming, you're gonna find times where the dream is happening to you, right? And then there's a step where you're like watching the dream happening, but you have no control over it. And then the next higher level is you're in the dreaming, you know you're in the dreaming, but you have control. And you start consciously and deliberately interacting with the dreaming, which is the goal. So that's a step on the way.
Okay.
And the rules are different. The old notion that if you die in a dream, you die for real, that's not true. If that were true, I'd be dead a long time ago. Our teacher Coyote has taught us that, and so he said, "Oh yeah, if something's chasing you, let it catch you."
Mm.
And so he's told stories where he's been killed in the dreaming many times. I've only been killed in the dreaming a couple of times. Most of the time, if somebody tries to kill me, that barbarian warrior in me kicks in, and I just take heads off, or I blow people up with the energy. You know, the Toltec energy we teach, which we'll talk about in a minute, because I know you have questions about that. It's just like a ball of fire, and I just disintegrate people who deserve it. You know, like they're chasing and trying to kill little children, so I kill the ghost. You know, kind of thing. You know, I don't just randomly do it to strangers. You know, they might be in charge of my grant money. And they were going to give me the grant money, but if I blow them up in the dreaming, then I may not get the grant money. So, you know, you don't just blow up, and they got to be doing something really bad to do that. So, I didn't leave that on silent mode. Phasers on stun.
Phasers on stun.
Star Trek.
Star Trek.
After Monty Python, you got to know Star Trek.
I am a Trekkie.
Okay.
Yes.
Good, you're there.
Love it.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, first start with the journals. We want to go lucid, and then there's some things you can learn. You're going to notice things like themes over and over and over again. You know, I'm in a parking garage again, or I'm in a big hotel and I'm lost again, and things like that. I'm in a school classroom again, things like that. Cruise ships. And so certain themes will pop up. That's one way you can start to analyze the dreaming. And there's correspondences between the dreaming, between different planes of reality, what the Tibetans would call the bardos, which is the chambers our soul or our spirit goes through between lifetimes. So that's where. But the level of rigor that we want is first start writing down your dreams. Even if you don't remember anything, just okay, and then just start writing. I didn't remember any dreams. Oh well, I'm going to write this other stuff. Whatever the first thing comes to your mind, just start writing whatever stuff comes to mind. And you'll think that it's just coming to you right then. Oh, yeah, even if it's, today I need to do this, and then, and then all of a sudden you'll realize you're daydreaming about something else. Well, write that daydream down, and next thing you know, an hour's gone by, you're late for work, and your boss fires you. And, but I was writing my dreams down. Right. Hopefully that won't happen. You know.
Yeah, let's not manifest that.
No, I'm teasing you. I've been known to do that upon occasion. You can ask Bonnie.
It happens.
Geek humor. Yeah. She only married me because I was good at geek humor, and I was a sci-fi nerd.
Is that it? Is that your story?
Yeah, that's what I'm sticking with.
Yeah.
Sense of humor is key.
So So dreaming is an area we're going to be working on here for a while. Sometime in the not too distant future, we're going to have a dreaming workshop. And we're going to be adding some other classes in addition to the Monday discussions. And I don't know what day of the week that will be. I probably think, other than dreaming, which will probably be more of like a weekend workshop, I think there's going to be an ongoing class about the Tree of Life. It's the next one. Are you familiar with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life?
I am not, but I actually make Tree of Life pendants. Just because I love the shape. I love the form of it.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Okay.
what it represents.
Good.
But I have not studied it.
Okay. Well, if you don't run away screaming after tonight, and if you ever decide to come back, that's probably what you will start getting exposed to. The Tree of Life, very briefly, because all my other students who are watching online know this, is kind of like the universal magic decoder ring. It's a map of the universe, both macrocosmically and microcosmically, and any legitimate system of anything has to correspond to that.
Okay.
Whether it's quantum physics or whether it's spirituality or anything in between.
Is it a toroidal shape? Is that what with the Tree of Life? Yeah, because it's
Looks something like this.
okay, right.
And you will find three-dimensional models, and you can tell from the way the things overlap here that there is a three-dimensionality to it, or there can be. But keep in mind that this is really just a graphical representation of something that's 19-dimensional. So it's even making it three-dimensional isn't entirely accurate. Are you familiar with the term morphic resonance?
Yes.
Okay. So every part of the universe connects with every other part in some form of morphic resonance. And the most important of those interrelationships are shown, by the Sephiroth, the spheres, and the main pathways, right? For example, you don't see a connection between Malkuth down here and Gebra up here, though there is one. It's just not one of the main pathways that's really considered. It's a minor pathway. So there is an interrelationship, and these are the most important. And learning this will help everything you do.
Is this a representation of energy flow?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a representation of energy. It's a representation of consciousness. It's a map to the higher planes of the universe. We're down here in Malkuth in this three-dimensional physical world. You need to know that there are lower dimensions than this that we can communicate with that really aren't shown here. There are many higher dimensions that are shown here. And many, if not most, if not all, of the traditional cultures have some version of this. The Norse Tree of Life is different. The Celtic Tree of Life looks a little different. The Australian Aboriginal Tree of Life looks a little different. But they all have a map, and most of them call it the Tree of Life. All over the world. Cultures that never talk to each other. So I think we're far enough along that we need to start delving into a few subjects with this higher level of academic rigor that I'm talking about tonight. And keep in mind that these are all revolving around the idea of Toltec consciousness and how we upgrade and change our consciousness. The ultimate goal is the realities in our world are based on the net total of the human collective consciousness interacting with the Earth's consciousness field. So in a lot of ways, our reality is an agreement that we've all made. If we don't like that agreement, then it's time to make a new one. And how we do that is part of what we do in the Toltec work. And the next step is a higher level of rigor. So for the people who are formal students, finish the books, and then we're going to move on. And the next thing we're moving on into, from a more academic standpoint, is the Tree of Life, and from a more practical standpoint is the dreaming. So that's where we're going.
Groovy.
Groovy, Marcia. Any questions? Any questions online?
Somebody's left. Shri had a bunch of comments. I don't know if she has a question. I thought we might want to introduce our guest and introduce Patricia to the school.
Yeah, get him on the line, get him on the screen, and we'll do exactly that.
So I'm asking them if there's any questions. I think they're in real time. Okay, so say hi to the camera up there over his shoulder.
So first we have here in a lovely peacock-colored outfit is Patricia. Say hi, Patricia, and the lovely red hair. And Patricia is the newest formal student in our school.
Hi, Patricia.
And
hello.
Sitting to her left is Christy from West Virginia, who just got to Mount Shasta, what time is it? And has no idea why she came here. She was going to go she just knew she had to get out of West Virginia, and she went someplace else first, but then decided, oh no, I've never heard of this place called Mount Shasta, but I think I'll go there. And here she is. And the first thing she did was run into our booth at the Healing and Holistic Fair last week in Reading, and we were all busy, and so she grabbed some of our literature and ran away, and here she is tonight.
Here I am.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to California,
Thank you
or actually as we prefer to call it, welcome to the state of Jefferson. We're not overly fond of California.
Okay.
When we go south, we say we're going to California.
Yeah. A number of counties here in Northern California and other counties in Southern Oregon have been trying to form a new state since before World War II.
Oh, wow.
And it keeps getting put on hold, and we're getting closer. I think most of the counties have actually voted to secede from their respective states.
I have no idea.
And there's all kinds of politics, but up here we tend to be free thinkers and independent, and we don't like people telling us what to do.
That must be why I'm here. That must be why I was called here. It sounds very familiar.
And it doesn't matter if the people in charge are Democrats or Republicans, we don't like any of them. And it's been that way for a long time. It got put on hold in World War II in the interest of national security. Or, when the Nazis are attacking, it's time to circle your wagons and get along. And right after World War II would have been a good time to do it. But it didn't happen, and so now we're still trying to get back on track for that. Hopefully soon. And
in case you don't know, California has it on the ballot this year to split up into 3 parts because we
is
have.
that still on the ballot? I heard a rumor it got taken off.
Maybe I don't keep up with all that stuff.
But
the point is that it has to do with water, and all of the water comes from here. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it may have been taken off through illegal means, but that's another political story which we don't need to go into here. We would have been stuck with San Francisco still, which is part of our problem. We don't want to be stuck with San Francisco. Was there another question?
Maria asked if there is any chance the Dreaming Workshop will be in tandem with another event so I don't have to miss it. And so I don't know that it will really happen necessarily between now and then. Is she coming out for the level 3, right?
She's coming out. No, she's coming out for the December 1st event.
Oh, okay.
And because she's got her level 3.
Right.
But I don't think she's planning on coming out for the level 3 in a couple of
No,
weeks.
no.
And then she's planning on coming out for the level 4 class in January, which is already intense enough. And so I don't think there's going to be time.
They're probably not the workshop, but there might be some dreaming stuff that we can give her, like,
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll get you started, Maria. If nothing else, get Coyote's book called The Golden Flower. That's kind of like in the second tier of books you need to master.
I saw that online. It looked interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, we're I don't know. It may not happen this year. I would love to do everything we need to do right now. But we all still need time to eat. So we probably, I don't know. That's where the school is going. Is we're going into a higher level of academic type rigor, and we're working on the dreaming, and we're working on the Tree of Life. Those are the two areas I want us to be focusing on, and I am trying to bring a bunch of people to fruition on this preliminary material.
I would just say, in general, students, when he announces different subjects, especially if they pique your interest, is to let him know, you've done that, Maria, but if you put it into an email or something, then we know who's interested in what, and especially because of your travel plans, we can look at piggybacking events together.
Yeah, if 14 people say, I don't give a rat's patootie about this level 3 class you've got scheduled to teach how to teach the Ikadwa, I want dreaming now, I will pay attention to those kinds of things. So
I want level 3, please.
October 13th.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
going to talk to you about that
Yeah.
afterwards.
So real quickly for our newcomer, the Ikadwa is the form of subtle energy used by the Toltecs. Every indigenous culture on the planet had a name for the natural energy in our body, whether it's chi or prana or vital force, or probably the 3 most common that we're aware of. Lots of other ones. I read an academic article once that had documented 95 different names for the phenomenon of chi in different cultures around the world. It didn't list all of them. I kind of wish it had. I would love to have seen that list. But the article I saw just had said there are 95 names recorded, and
Wow.
He had a citation, but I never did find the citation. What the Toltecs have done over the centuries is that natural energy has been modified, and it has been linked to directly into the background energy field of the universe that we call the matrix of light. And so our version is a little different at a quantum mechanical physics basis than any of the others, and it makes it very much stronger than any of the others. And it's the key element in Toltec consciousness work and in all our spiritual work, and it can be used to enhance any element of human performance, whether it's art or music or dance, academia. Oh man, could you imagine if all the academics had the Ikadwa and tapped into the direct source to the universe?
Wow.
Oh man, that would be cool.
That would be awesome.
I use it when I write. I use it when I do woodworking. So this house was put back together when we remodeled it using the Ikadwa. You can use it in athletics, in martial arts, in healing work. And it's one of those literally secrets of the universe that the Toltecs have been holding in trust for more than 1,000 years. Our teacher, Coyote, was directed to release it to the public starting in 2007. So from the late 900s AD until 2007, it was not available to the public. It was only held within those select few people who were trained in the Toltec lineage. And so that was 11 years ago, starting next year will be 12 years ago, and it's grown. And we have a host of people now who've been trained with the Coyote, or some of us, who are doing amazing things with the Ikatwa. Another practitioner, a good friend of ours down in Southern California, named Phyllis Douglas, does incredible singing and music work, and with bowls and all kind of sound healing, and she does amazing things with that. And it's like, I didn't know the human body could make those sounds. when I heard her singing and toning and playing, it's like, really? That's possible? It's just angelic. Her shamanic name is Vox Angelus, which is voice of the angels. And amazing work comes out of her. Like things I didn't know were possible. And so on and on and on. Artwork. One of my students, Yvonne, is doing some incredible artwork. I have one in the next room I can show you when we're done.
That Spider Woman is beautiful.
Oh, and I can't. She's this week. Well, she's down there. She's getting copies made. She has a photo, and she makes these giglé, and I'm probably not pronouncing that. High quality prints made of the Spider Woman that she drew, and it is just really. I'm just like in awe. Of what she's done with that. So, and then a lot of Coyote students are doing incredible things with it, whether it's with art or music or dance or anything.
Is one of the books that you mentioned, does that cover that part of it? The 4 books that you mentioned? I find this on the website if I was interested in.
Yeah, but the 4 books that I'm talking about are aimed at somebody considering a serious esoteric spiritual path. In general, in the world of spirituality, we started talking about dogmatic religions and never closed that loop. Thank you for getting us back on track. At one end, you've got dogmatic religions, and then you've got kind of religion light. Well, we're Christian, but we're not going to be judgmental. And then it's the feel-good religions. So we go to church on Sunday, and it looks a lot like any traditional religion, but it's all big happy. We just all want to feel good. And then there's kind of the New Age movement stuff, where we go out in the world and it's love and light and happiness, and let's just all get along and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and the world will be a better place. Which works great until you want to deal with the other half of the universe, as the light half is what they focus on. And then if you imagine the yin-yang symbol, there's the dark half. And that's the polar difference. And you don't have a stable you don't have a stable universe without both halves. It's sort of like we don't have stable matter unless we have positive charges and negative charges electrically. You've got to have both. So the love and light crowd is ignoring the dark half, because that's the scary stuff. That's the shadow self. That's where we stuff all those feelings, and we just don't go there anymore. No, I don't do that. Except if you want to go very far up this tree, to get from here and start working up the tree of life, which is a metaphor for raising your consciousness and developing higher states of consciousness, you have to go there. Just like in the Star Wars movie, the second one, when Yoda sends Luke into the cave, and he flunks, right? You've got to confront that shadow self and place it under your control. And killing it the way Luke did is not placing it under your control. You have to say, yes, I have a dark side. And no matter how badly that person needs his head put on a pike, I'm not going to do it. At least not this lifetime. Not until after 2012. I can't kill anybody, and I can't be killed until after 2012. Right? That was one of my agreements coming in. Wait, what year is it?
All bets are off.
All bets are off. No, the goal was by 2012, I was supposed to have learned that lesson. So get that far, and then you'll have learned, and then you don't get to kill anybody unless they try to kill you first. And everybody has that right, by the way. So along this continuum then, there's all the things, all the activities out there in the world to make it a better place, to feed the homeless and all that. We call that a horizontal path. It's making this physical world, kind of like we talked about the athletic training, makes the physical world the best it can be. It doesn't acknowledge the higher planes of existence. The way I describe it in one of my pieces of writing, which none of you have read yet, I talk about a comparison between shamanism and science. And I'm qualified to make that comparison. I accuse science of leaving 80 to 90% of the universe out of their work. They ignore it. Deliberately. Even when their own equation says, yeah, there's 18 other dimensions. No, we don't go there. We're looking right here. Shamanism, no, there's 18 other dimensions of this universe. Great. How many other universes are there? Let's go to all of them. So the claim I'm making in this piece of writing, which some of you will see in a not too distant future, is that shamanism is actually more scientific than science. For that reason. We don't leave out most of the universe. Okay.
I was even thinking when you were using the baseball analogy and how focused these guys are and how good they are at what they do, and yet they're still not training anything more than the physical body.
At least not consciously.
Consciously. So they're not taking into account their spiritual self and, these other higher bodies and so forth. And so, that's the case with all the experts.
I would like to actually do an experiment. And I would like to take a team, any athletic team, pick a sport, and right when they start their preseason training, give them all an Akadwa transmission. Mm-hmm. Every single one. And then a month later they get their level 2. And probably don't need to go any farther than that. And then let them play the whole season using the Akadwa. Whether it's baseball. Every at-bat, you go up there, you turn on the Akadwa, and have your at-bat. You're the pitcher, activate your Akadwa before every pitch. And I want to see what the outcome would be. Yeah.
It'll be like when the Romans threw the Druids out of any of their hearings and stuff because they could always
sway
the outcome of it, and so they weren't allowed in anymore. So they just won't allow your Akaduaites into their,
No, I mean, I would say that it would give trained athletes who are using it with an intent, it could give them potentially enough of an advantage that they would start winning championships. Now, it wouldn't be fair to give it to the Golden State Warriors. They're already kind of on a dynasty roll the way Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls were on a dynasty roll, or the way Magic Johnson's LA Lakers were on a dynasty roll, right? So they won multiple championships in a short period of time. I think in 10 years, what did Chicago win? 8 years, they won 7 times, some ridiculous thing like that. And now Golden State's already won 3 out of 4.
Well, if it was going to be a good test, you would find the underdog.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Exactly.
Find an underdog team who's never beaten this team in the playoffs, and then say, okay, you guys are getting the Akadwa. And then we do that, and then let them go out and see if they take out the Golden State Warriors. That would be a great test. Except I don't like basketball. I'd have to sit there and watch these basketball games. It's never my favorite sport.
Well, maybe you should shift to football.
Football, I'm kind of down on them. They've lost.
Sold out to the dark side.
They have. If I was going to pick a sport, I would probably pick baseball.
Okay.
Because I'm really intrigued. When I read this a couple of years ago about the time, I was like, I never thought of it that way because I was terrible at baseball when I was growing up. I tried to play Little League. I made it up to Pony League, and I was terrible. I'd swing the bat sometime, I'd hit a home and run, and it would be purely random because I was terrible at hand-eye coordination. I was growing too tall, too fast, terrible. And I was tall, so they tried to make me play basketball, and I had no coordination, so I'd knock people down and I'd get fouls called on me. And then I'd go out for football, and I still had no coordination, but I'd knock people down and everybody cheered.
And they liked it.
And I thought, oh, this is a sport, this is where I belong. Okay. So, I wanted to play ice hockey, but I grew up in a place where the ponds didn't freeze in the winter. And the nearest ice rink was about 40 miles away, so ice hockey didn't happen. So, no. But, no, I think baseball would be a really good test because it's a long enough season. And I'd just like to see statistically what would happen if you had a team where everybody had the account.
It's kind of like in Back to the Future 3. Is it 3? Yeah, no.
Is that the one with
2.
the flying skateboard?
Yeah. And where they get a hold of all the sports scores. It's like a little book that shows all the winning teams, and then the bad guy Biff goes back into the past, gives it to himself, so that in the future he would have had all the, and that's how he makes his fortune and changes everything. So that's where it gets tricky in that,
of course.
Those other realities.
Yeah.
Start messing things up.
But yeah, I just found that really intriguing when I read that, and it's like, and yet everybody hits. We go out, we watch. People hit the baseball, people catch the baseball. So there may be something to that.
And the interesting thing could be, if you started in a different time frame or a different league, start with kids.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be interesting to see?
Well, I think everybody
taking a child and activating that.
Every kid needs to get the Akadwa.
Yeah. We
need to stop vaccinating them and give them the Akadwa. That's another story for
me.
Wait till my book comes out.
There you go.
So the Akadwa is this subtle energy that we use. It's given as a transmission because it's not just tuning your existing energies, kind of like Reiki does. It makes you chi, which the Japanese called ki. That's the ki in Reiki. It makes it the best it can be, and it's a powerful tool. And Akadwa is stronger. That's just a fact of physics. So it's been used for many thousands of years, and each generation refines it. So Coyote's added to it, and I've added to it, and Phyllis has added to it, and a bunch of other people are adding to the body of knowledge that is Akadwa. And people are using it then to do things, and it stimulates a burst of creativity when people embrace it. And Coyote's brother, our friend Bruto, he when he hit a certain level with the Akadwa, all of a sudden his creativity, boom, he's making this amazing jewelry. And I got a sample of that too back there. So it's really powerful, and it's not just, oh, I learned Qigong, I can do something with that. It's a lot more. There's a lot more to Akadwa than anything you've ever heard or seen or read about the martial arts, and like Qigong.
You tied it into quantum physics?
Mm-hmm.
Did you? I mean,
yeah.
How does that kind of?
Well,
you can go into that in less than 6 hours of lecture.
Right.
Right.
Come to the class.
I know it's not a simple question, but just
let's see.
General.
Okay. The short version is the traditional description, going back many generations, of the Akadwa is that it is a subtle physical substance.
Okay.
Okay, that's what it was called. When I found Coyote and the Ikadwa, I had been training in martial arts for somewhere between 15 and 20 years, including Qigong and Tai Chi. And I had been trained and was certified as an acupuncturist. So I knew how to manipulate Qi and meridians with needles. I had experienced phenomena at that point of being able to see energy at times. I would have, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have put my abilities reliably at maybe a 2. You know, I could sometimes see things, most of the time not. Sometimes I could sense the energy fields, mostly not. Sometimes I could do something and people would feel it, mostly not. I didn't realize at that point that whether they feel it or not is not the deciding factor. It's what you, the practitioner, can sense and know that you're doing. That's the deciding factor. And then I got the Ikadwa at what we call a level 1. That's the initial transmission before it's fully flowered and developed. Within a month of getting my level 1 transmission, everything I was doing with the energy was at least 10 times stronger. So that means going from, on a scale of 1 to 10, going from a 2 to a 20. And that was several Ikadwa levels ago. And each one you get a bump. And almost everybody who is actively using the Ikadwa, when they go from like a 1 to a 2 or a 2 to a 3, they get a bump. Maybe it's not 10x. Of course, I had a lot of Qi training before I got this.
And you were using it every single day at work.
Yeah.
With
clients.
Yeah.
So the key thing for me is like I knew the subtle energies were real, and I knew that nobody out there had a really good explanation of it. But I had already started at that point teaching some classes to acupuncturists on modern physics explanation of Qi. It was incomplete, but I had started that process. And then I found the Ikadwa, met Coyote. We had a great conversation. That's a funny story for another day. And so the key difference is I instantly knew that Ikadwa was different than Qi or Prana or any of the others I run into. And so I realized the key was understanding this concept of the subtle physical substance. So if it's physical matter, what does that really mean? And so I did a lot of work and pondering and contemplating and meditating, trying to figure that out. And I don't know how much you know about quantum physics, but there's an obscure side branch of modern physics called string theory. Physicists still don't universally agree that string theory is real. But when you start seeing the strings, you kind of go, which I have done. Okay, we can't even write a full equation for string theory, let alone solve it. And so, as far as scientific rigor is concerned, string theory is officially fuzzy stuff. And scientists don't like fuzzy stuff. By definition, there's science and then there's fuzzy stuff.
Right.
Until they figure out, it's all fuzzy stuff, which they haven't accepted that reality yet. They're still in the old model. Right? They're still in a Newtonian model, not a modern quantum model. So string theory basically says that, yes, you've got matter, and then you've got atoms, and then you've got protons, electrons, and neutrons, and under that you've got quarks. And under quarks, you've got strings. And strings are these little high-tension vibrating things that are a boundary. If you analyze strings correctly, they are a boundary between this physical plane and the higher planes. And the subtle physical substance of the akadwa is a resonant structure, 1 octave higher frequency than the strings that make up this physical matter. So we've got this. There's higher frequency versions of all this matter. Keeping in mind that none of this is actually solid matter, it's all energy.
Would the extremes of infrared and ultraviolet be an example, where we're talking about something, that is visible, but then there's a continuation of that which is not visible to us. So at the same way, there's a portion which is physical, but then there's a continuation of that we can't really perceive. Or is that not a good example?
That's an okay example.
Okay.
Perhaps a better one, though, would be the musical scale.
Okay.
So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Middle C is kind of like right in the middle of the piano keyboard. Dum. 1 octave higher is high C. Dum. There's a frequency relationship of 2 to 1 for any 2 notes that are an octave apart. So A to high A is a 2 to 1 ratio. B to high B is a 2 to 1 ratio. C to high C is a 2 to 1 ratio, and so on. And then the next C up is double the frequency of high C. So if we're only looking at 1 octave, we think that's all there is, and somebody says, well, wait, why aren't you using the other notes? Like, what? There's other notes? It'd be like Dilbert, the cartoon Dilbert, right? He always carried a pocket protector with a pen of every single color. And he was obsessive about it. And he would color code everything. And I really resonated with this little series of cartoons because I did the same thing when I was an engineer. I color coded all my drawings, and I got called at home in the middle of the night during a 24-hour day test. There was a day shift, an evening shift, and a night shift. The night shift called me in. Not because they had a problem that they needed me to solve, but because they wanted to borrow my drawing that I had color coded. And it was locked in my office. And I said, you guys have to be effing kidding me. You called me in for that. Well, yeah, it's like, so I let him look at my thing, and then the next day I got him a whole set of colored pencils, which is what I had marked this drawing with. And I go and I'm taking my drawing back. Here you go. But this Dilbert, he got so upset about it, they sent him to the company's psychologist. And so, okay, so what's the problem? Well, I've got this thing about these colored pencils. I have to have every color with me. She goes, primary colors or secondary colors? And he's like, there's secondary colors? Boom! Out the door he went. He had to go to those secondary colors. So it's like, we're looking at 1 octave of frequencies. And then all of a sudden somebody says, wait, there's more frequencies? I mean, there's a higher set and a higher... Oh, wow. I mean, my response would be, wow, cool, there's more to the universe. You think that's what science has done? No.
Not
Exactly
so
the
much.
opposite. They'd say, la la la, we don't look... We're looking at this set of frequencies right here. I don't care how many Einstein equations say there's more frequencies here and here. We're looking here, and that's all we're looking at. Is, in a nutshell, what modern science is doing.
Right.
When they're not selling out to corporate interests.
America, I know.
Yeah. So that's what Akadwa is, in my opinion. And I don't have the equations finalized yet. They're percolating about the equations for that. And I don't even know, given how complicated string theory is, I don't even know if we need equations for it. I think my model I've developed so far is probably incomplete. And I'm constantly working on it. But if you want to get a head start before the next book comes out, read up on string theory. Just a a little light reading to put you to sleep at night. To have some to modify your dreams. That's another thing you can do.
I'm very interested in quantum physics and those kind of things. I just don't know a lot yet, but I'm very intriguing.
One way to help you remember your dreams is to read something new and different just before you go to bed. Don't watch TV. TV frequencies are bad. You know.
Watch TV.
Good. And so, but read something different. Yeah, read some Woolley master stuff, or Tao of physics stuff, or string theory stuff. Chaos theory would be good. Very interesting. Chaos there is a whole field of science. It's not just a branch of physics or anything else. It doesn't fit any other field completely. And this rigidity of academia delayed us really developing chaos theory for almost a couple decades. When people started finding this stuff, it took like 10 years before people found out that other people elsewhere in the country in completely different academic disciplines were finding similar things, but nobody could get published because you want to publish in a math journal, it's got to be math. Well, this isn't math. Same for physics and meteorology and every other field of science where there was some fringe nut job finding new stuff that didn't fit the model. They all of a sudden they ended up together. They started finding each other, and then we literally. I think the best book, I have it buried somewhere in there, is called Chaos: The Making of a New Science, and I think the author's name is Glick. And it's all about how the field of chaos theory developed in this academic world that was hell-bent on preventing it from being developed. And it developed anyway because the truth comes out. Can't stop it. So, rigorous academic disciplines is an approach that the high-level spiritual work, so you had the fluffy stuff in the middle, and then going up the tree of life is all the other things that are what we call a serious esoteric path. Now, the word esoteric means known or understood by a select few. So this isn't mainstream knowledge. You won't see this on the evening news except for them to make fun of it and ridicule it. You know, like what is it that talk show host Sean Hannity? It's like whenever he's got somebody he's interviewing, it's like you got to be a nut to even agree to go on those shows, right? You know you're going to be slammed if you disagree with these political talk show hosts. Is whenever he wants to shoot you down, his stacked pat response. And what was that other O'Reilly guy? I don't think he's on the air because he did something bad. And it's like, oh come on, you don't really believe it. Oh come on. Well, there's come on. He just interrupts you and keeps saying, oh come on, over and over and over and over again. And he looks like an idiot. He makes the other people look like idiots, and then I just turned it all off, and I stopped watching at some point. So yeah, you won't find it in the mainstream. You've got to seek it out. This stuff has been hidden. It's more hidden now than it used to be. In the olden days, everybody knew there was esoteric schools and that it was hard work, and you had to be of a certain type of person to get accepted and or asked to join, or if you asked to join, that for them to accept you. But you were in Egypt. Everybody knew that. Oh yeah, that's the esoteric school right over there. You want to go? Go. They're nuts. But yeah, go ahead. It was no big deal. Nowadays, it's like, oh, that's bad. That's evil. That's dark. That's fourth dimensional, whatever. We don't do fourth dimension. We only do fifth. We'll go from third to the fifth. And how are you going to do that? Go straight from third to fifth and not go through the fourth? Really? That would be a neat trick. Good luck with that. And in shamanism, we say, you're only limiting yourself to 2 of the dimensions. Really? That's it? Okay, if that's true, you play with that 1 octave right there. I'm playing with the whole keyboard. So, the esoteric work is the higher level work that has the ability to tap you into the higher planes so that you find out why you're here. We call it your true will, your true karmic, actually, dharma would be a better word, your true dharmic purpose for being here in this incarnation. And then to bring you the skills to help you accomplish that. So the only failure in life is to not be attempting to find and fulfill your true will. And you never get the whole thing all at once. You get one step at a time. It's like a stepping stones through the forest. You get to one, if you're going in the right direction, the light will turn on and you'll see the next stepping stone. Go there, and then go there. And that's what learning, this is why your journaling is important, because you start to see the synchronicities to lead you there. So all of this stuff we're talking about ties together. And now a lot of my students are ready for this higher level of rigor. And so we're going to do some higher level stuff now. We're moving into the Tree of Life. We're going to start doing more work with the dream. That's where we're going.
You didn't say it, but it felt like you were right there, that another aspect of working the dreaming is to learn mapping, and to, the journal is part of that.
Yeah.
Because you're mapping your experiences, and then you start to see, as you're rereading them, the path that you've been on. And one thing that some of you may be familiar with, when you do a astrology reading, that's what's it called?
Point of Fortune?
No, it's the transits.
Oh.
And the thing is that in many times you go through that energy 3 times. And so the first time is kind of like it's introducing you to the energy. The second time is the work you need to do. And the third time is to make sure you really got it and that you've wrapped it up. And so these patterns happen in the dreaming as well, that you'll get little bits of it at a time. And if you're not seeing the bigger picture, then you can miss it. And so we learn a mapping skill. And we learn, to map in the Bardos, in the dream spaces, in the matrix, in that background space of places we've been, and which means learning that attention and intention here, as well as in the dreaming, so that you can pay attention to details. Yeah. And so write down as many details as you can in your journals, colors and directions, and all of that, because it all has some significance.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I guess the question that came up for me was, a lot of years ago, I read the Edgar Cayce book on dreaming, and so I started journaling there. I assume that's not a bad jump off point until you start teaching, more expansive ways to in that energy.
I don't know that I ever read a whole book about Cayce's approach to dreaming, what he brought through on that. When I remember back in the day, I read a lot of what Cayce had brought through about healing, specifically, and I was less interested in the other stuff, although I did resonate with his book on Atlantis, which I have somewhere in there. And then I didn't know why, and now of course I know why. The Toltec culture is derived from Atlantis. Despite the fact that academia doesn't admit that it ever existed, despite the huge amount of evidence compiled by this guy, Ignatius Donnelly, who wrote a book in the 1880s called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. And this is the version I have. Actually, I've got a couple of versions of it. He goes through systematically all the evidence to look at archaeology and anthropology and linguistics and biology and a host of other fields, geology, to document evidence that it's an extraordinarily strong case that Atlantis existed right where Plato said it was, or right in the middle of what we now call the Atlantic Ocean. So, and that he has a whole map in there, a chain of that. So, as we go into this more academically rigorous approach to our work, the ones I'm going to be emphasizing are the Tree of Life and the Dreaming. especially now that most of you are getting close to finishing up the 4 core books. I'll talk about that offline in just a minute.
Okay.
There's a whole wealth of other information you might be interested in, and related to the Tree of Life, of course, astrology, which you just talked about, and everybody should be studying astrology. And there's the Tarot, and everybody should probably learn a little about the Tarot. And then there's on and on and on down a whole host of subjects pertaining to this. The goal is to learn as much as you can about as much as you can, and when you do that, you'll find, probably like I've done, that the best approach to the consciousness work is the Toltec work. But we borrow a lot from other traditions. We borrow energy anatomy stuff from the Ayurvedic traditions. I've brought in the meridian system from the Chinese traditions, which the Ayurvedic tradition really didn't do much with. The Chinese tradition did. And modern physics, and there's all these things that apply. So you're not limited to just the Tarot or the Tree of Life or the dreaming work. I'm telling you that that's important, but don't stop there. Follow your own interests. You've got them, so nurture them and follow it. And if you want to learn, rocket science, I could probably find somebody who can teach you about that even. But yeah, seriously, do art. Everybody should do art. Everybody should do music. You don't all have to learn the bagpipes, but the cool kids will. Okay. Not that I'm biased or anything.
Exactly.
So, any other questions?
Not online. No.
Okay. We're going to go offline. Thank you all for watching. And I know there's a group of you who watch the delayed broadcast. Thank you. And if you have questions, get a hold of us. Okay?